I have fallen in and out of love with many things in my 2 decades of living. That made me sound old as hell. Besides the point. But I've had 2 constant passions in my life: anime and music, specifically hip hop. Not like making hip hop music. I'm not like a struggling SoundCloud rapper. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying that I'm not. My first anime, like a lot of people, was the one and only Dragon Ball Z. My first full-length hip-hop album I ever listened to was on my PSP. Yeah, I put music on my PSP. Talk to Me was the Carter 2, and still to this day, you know what I'm saying, I get nostalgic goosebumps when I hear the mob come on. But even as a young 5th grader, I knew and could see how far apart anime and hip-hop were on the entertainment spectrum. Not in terms of one being better than the other, but just being different. Especially the more I dove into anime and anime culture, and hip-hop culture. I mean, let's just keep it a buck. Not so much now, but the late 2000s, early 2010s, anyone over the age of 12 or 13 who watched anime probably got clowned because it was seen as just Asian cartoons, and society has this obsession with killing off anything that makes you happy from your childhood. So when you get deep into your teens, you can't possibly enjoy anything animated anymore, and you can only re-get that love once you have kids of your own. That got kind of dark, but y'all get the point. In trying to mix anime with a hip-hop community filled with wannabe poser hella fake deep niggas, it's like pouring oil in the water. I mean, y'all see hip-hop, you know what I'm saying? That is until January 4th 2007, when legendary mangaka Takashi Ozaki and legendary rapper and Wu-Tang member RZA would come together and make something beautiful on Spike.com. Afro Samurai.
A man with no friends, only live for revenge. Live his life off the hinge, cut through 1,000 bits. Play sweet with the force of a cyclone. Cut missile and bone, missile and drone. Stand in my path, you a dead man. I cut the whole world in half of the #1 headband. Rest of a lonely soul on a lonely road.
So this video will be split into 2 parts. Part 1, my discovery and experience with Afro Samurai. Wow, that was just, man, how did you not catch that when you were writing that in the script? Awaken. Pause, bro, pause. And part 2, the aesthetic, design, music, plot of the series, all that fun stuff. Speaking of plot, this video will be focusing on the anime mostly and its story, not the manga. I need to point that out because there are pretty stark differences between the anime and manga, specifically the ending and climax of the story, which leads to the central themes and what you get out of the 2 being, ironically, polar opposites. Towards the end of the manga, Okazaki is interviewed by, I presume to be the publishers of whatever this came from, I guess just the people who published this manga, and he gets asked, the version of the manga that we're publishing is actually a relaunched version of your original doujinshi. How did this relaunch come about? And he responds by saying, it started when we began the Afro Samurai project with Gonzo, that's the animation studio. In the anime series, we had to have mainstream entertainment elements added for the new audience. When I saw Afro animated and voiced for the first time, it felt like he left my nest. In the manga, I focused on showcasing my original Afro Samurai. So in essence, the manga is a relaunch of the doujinshi, but the world is bigger and the settings are stronger. This is something that I can see and that I definitely agree with and can tell happened. It's not like the anime version of Afro is some jokester and clown while the manga version is some serious one. They're not diluted and different to that extent. But putting the 2 side by side, looking at frame by frame, what they do, and then looking at manga panel by manga panel, once it's all said and done, you can clearly see that these Afros are written and treated a little bit different. And just to put people at ease, this wasn't a situation of like the corporate man sticking their hand into the creator's creation and completely ruining. No, it's not really that situation either. Okazaki then gets asked, the manga version of Afro Samurai diverges quite drastically from the anime version, spiraling the story into a different direction. Is this a case where your doujinshi became the basis for the anime, or did you always plan the manga to go in the direction seen in this book? book. He then responds by saying, the doujinshi version of Afro Samurai, the current manga version, the anime version, and the game version all have slight differences from each other. By the way, yeah, Afro Samurai got a game back in the day on the 360 and PS3. It's not like, reinventing the wheel or anything, but it's a damn fun hack and slash. If you have a 360 or like a PS3 and you want to play, you just need more Afro Samurai after this video or after you go watch the series or whatever you do, you can probably pick it up running no more than about like $20. So, I'm just saying, if you need some more Afro in your life, you have it. But the core concept is the same. Each represents a unique world and story. Such multiple worlds coexist within the Afro Samurai universe, and I allowed the series to be that way from the beginning. So there you go. Okazaki has no problem with these things being different. He accepts that, therefore you should too. So don't go around complaining or shitting on the anime or shitting on the manga because they're different. They're meant to be different. That's what it is. Moving on. There's also a sequel film, Afro Samurai Resurrection, that I will touch on after I finish up with the miniseries, but there's not really too much to say about this movie. It doesn't really have any crazy symbolism or new themes introduced into the series. It's not bad or anything, and I don't really want to call it a cash grab just because the stigma that term has these days for entertainment, but that's kind of what it is. It's still handled with care, but it's more so a thing that exists if, again, you just want more Afro Samurai in your life. Then you can go get like about an hour and a half's worth. So there you go. I will touch on that slightly, but I'm not going to do like a whole deep dive on the movie because, again, there's not much to dive into. The first portion of this video is not particularly long, but just in case you came here to see me talk solely about Afro Samurai and you do not give a damn about anything else other than that, I'm not mad at you, bro. Skip to this time on the screen now. So, with that said and out of the way, let's jump into it. I, like many people born in the late 90s and early 2000s, had 3 real ways of watching anime. Getting my parents to buy me DVDs and VCR tapes, but that gets expensive quick, so I would usually just have these massive holes in my collection where I just wasn't knowing what was happening, like jumping from episode 30 on this DVD to like episode 112 on the next DVD. So that was kind of out the question. Watching on TV through the likes of Toonami on Cartoon Network and the really watered down version of Dragon Ball Z Kai on Nickelodeon, and that classic Saturday morning block that showed Yu-Gi-Oh!, Dragon Ball Z, and that Sonic X show that I love but no one else does because Sonic is just a bad meme these days, but whatever, I'm not bitter, fuck you. CW for kids, or some people said it was called Toonzay, which I never saw or heard of. Maybe I wasn't paying attention, maybe that was just like a region thing, it only said Toonzay in certain regions, I don't know, but you guys know what it is. CW for kids in combination with Toonami and Nick here and there. Yeah, that's cool and all, but it was on TV, man. Like, let's be real, who the hell wants to watch TV? I know in the age of streaming, they say TV is dying, but TV has always been kind of for me personally because, like, I'm 10, I don't really want to be binded to any kind of schedule, much less a schedule when I need to be sitting down focused on a screen. So that would leave me with the third and my preferred option, YouTube. Back before YouTube had this $1 million copyright bot that constantly bullies me and my good friend here, Fair Use, it was the wave to watch full-length anime fights. So one day, after I finished watching Gohan and Cell's beam struggle for the 9th time that week, I see a black samurai in the recommended section on a nice little thumbnail. I clicked the video and the rest is history. Now look, I know the whole representation in movies and TV shows can be a touchy topic, with one side seeming to think women, blacks, and gay people just don't exist, therefore they shouldn't be in any prominent roles in movies or TV shows, and that's that way of thinking, I guess. And that's one side of the spectrum, but don't get it twisted, there's also people on the completely opposite side of the spectrum who seem to think that no white straight characters should exist in movies and TV shows ever again, and somehow if that happens then society will just become a better place, and that's one way of thinking too, I guess. But in that moment in my childhood, when I think about it, it does show why representation is important in our media. It doesn't need to be forced, but having it isn't the worst thing in the world either. The truth is, it's somewhere in the middle. I wasn't as seasoned in watching anime as I am now at 11 or 12, but even then I could see most anime characters are white or Japanese. Either way, they're more fair skinned and they don't look like me. And the characters that do have a little color to them look like this. And if you don't know, most black people don't look like that, so you know. And it's not like that was the first time I had ever been recommended a new anime by that YouTube algorithm, if there even was an algorithm back then. But nothing really caught my eye, if I'm being completely honest, which there are gonna be some goofies out here who claim this is racist somehow. Yes, I was very racist at 11 years old. That video, Afro Samurai, caught my attention because he was black. I'm not gonna get too nitty gritty or quote unquote political here, but I just thought I should throw that in there because it's my experience with discovering the show. Now, on to actually talking about Afro Samurai finally. So it starts, and we're shown this orange and brown color palette, which on paper, I'll admit to me personally at least, sounds like pure barf and it looked horrible, but it doesn't. It actually looks really good and grabs my attention. It's like a sunset in a wasteland, which is a dynamic clash and honestly sets the tone for the entire series and movie going forward. The first scene feels so tense when watching what happens, but just listen to the music at first. Now, I'm no sound designer or composer or anything like that, and that's for a good reason. And maybe I don't know what I'm talking about here, but this music feels so calm and chill, but like, these niggas are fighting for their life to smooth jazz bop, and that makes the fight that much more unsettling, niggas. You see what you could be mistaken for as our main protagonist, but that is actually Afro's dad, the little kid being Afro. And yeah. Afro watches as his dad is decapitated right in front of him, and this scene sets up what I imagine a Kill Bill Volume 3 would be. If you don't understand that reference, I'm not going to explain it, just go watch Kill Bill and, you know, you'll get it. The world of Afro Samurai works like this. There are two headbands, the number 1 and the number 2. The person holding the number 1 headband is the clear-cut most dominant warrior in the entire world, so naturally everybody wants the number 1 headband, right? Well, yeah, so now you're thinking, well, what the hell is the point of the number 2 if everyone just wants the number 1 who would willingly go after the number 2? Well, to challenge the number 1, you need the number 2 headband. So while it seems like everyone would be attacking the number 1 warrior, they're actually always going after the number 2 warrior because, again, to challenge the number 1, you need the number 2. Get it? Got it? Good. Our gunslinger here, whose name is Justice and ends up being the main antagonist and driving force for Afro's revenge, yes, you heard me right, his name is Justice, I'll explain later, kills Afro's dad, who was, before, you know, the whole head flying off thing happened, was the number 1 warrior. He does this seemingly to inflate his own ego and ascend into what he perceives to be as godhood because the number 1 headband is seemingly that important. Although throughout the entire anime we actually never see it bring you any power, any true substance, which is very, very fascinating to say the very least. There have been, and I imagine still are, people who get really, really confused as to if the number 1 headband actually does anything for you, or even the number 2 for that matter, and watching the anime at least, no, they don't do anything for you. They don't make you immortal or anything like that. General consensus is that the world has been told these headbands are very important and they believe it and everybody wants them, and that's just kind of that. Not Afro though. Afro could not care less about the number 1 headband or the number 2 headband. If you haven't figured it out by now, this is a revenge story. Afro will avenge his father and achieve his vindicated goal of taking down justice. And to do that, he needs the number 2 headband at all times, because remember, only the number 2 can challenge the number 1. So after that very, very traumatizing event happens to Afro, we see Afro sort of time skip forward and grow up, and he is a badass, to say the very least, these days. Afro definitely fits into your calm, cool, collected, cold-blooded killer archetype in anime and storytelling. He doesn't really have too much to say, and as a kid it was really cool to see, but as I got older I realized there's more layers to it than just him being cool. In storytelling, this character or type of character is always going to be hit or miss, and either received with open arms or rejected with closed ones. He could come across as really cool and everybody love him, or he could come across as really egotistical, emotional, and bratty, like, you know, some slander people throw to my boy Sasuke, it just isn't true, but, you know, that's whatever, that's for a different video. But this isn't a choice. We don't see Afro like this as soon as we're introduced to him. I mean, as a kid, he comes across as extremely shy and timid, but he goes through a traumatic event, so these actions are very much so justified. There are real case studies done where you can see a child experience something very traumatic and that having a lasting impact on the type of person that child grows to be, and this is definitely the case with Afro. While it sounds harsh to say, he saw the only person he had for a long time, his dad, get decapitated in front of him, so you have to excuse him, but he has a little bit of some sociopathic tendencies. And again, I know that sounds very harsh to say, and I'll be able to bring more examples as we go through the story, but yeah, he's not just a cool character for the sake of being cool. And we see this. Afro then cuts down an abundance of men, but something I want to point out is the reason these men were confronting Afro is for the number 2 headman, but not because they wanted it from themselves. They were hired contract killers to secure the number 2 headband. They don't care about the number 2 or the number 1. They don't care about ascending to godhood. They were hired. And it really starts to knock on this surface level thinking this early on into the series of, do these headbands really mean anything? Or can I cycle this all back to nihilism and that these headbands only are important in this world because we're told they're important in this world? Either way though, he, surprise surprise, survives this confrontation, and then he travels into this small city and he has a nice confrontation in a bar where he orders some lemonade, and the most slick, cool nigga ass shit, this man has his own personal straw for beverages, man. That's just fire, bro. You can't even hate on that. He then continues on this journey and he's being followed by an old man who we later figure out is a part of a group of people who refer themselves as the brothers. I think it goes 1 through 5, maybe 1 through 6. I can't remember, and I'm lazy and not gonna look it up. So find out for yourself if you really want to know. Oh yeah, also something that I just haven't mentioned, Afro has a little bit of a sidekick since, you know, he is basically a silent character. Like I said, he doesn't say absolutely nothing, but he doesn't really have too much to say. So considering the fact that he travels alone, the only real interaction we get when Afro is traveling by himself is through his sidekick, Ninja. Yes, that is his name, and he is voiced by the GOAT, Samuel L. Jackson. And let me just say, I am not really all that into voice acting. I'm not really that deep into it. Voice acting is really bad, and then everything else for me personally, if it's not just completely bad, I just immediately hear it and be like, yeah, that's gross, then I'm not gonna get too nitpicky about it. That being said though, Samuel L. Jackson is the perfect role for Ninja. Ninja serves as a little bit of comic relief in these, you know, grimy times as Afro just completely slaughters every person that stands in the way of his vengeance. And just if you don't really believe me, because I can't really explain the importance of Ninja, I'm making him sound like just a gag character, which I guess he is. But if you don't believe, just roll a clip, Awaken, just roll a clip.
What about honor and fairness and shit? RPG? You got a motherfucking RPG? An RPG in a motherfucking backpack? Wait, can we talk about this?
Now, there aren't too many moments in anime that make me genuinely laugh out loud. Maybe a little snicker here, maybe a little grin there, but genuinely laugh out loud? Nah, that doesn't happen too many times. Ninja in Afro Samurai makes me laugh out loud a handful of times, and it's definitely because of Samuel Jackson's performance. Part of me likes to believe that either A, they hired Samuel Jackson first and then they wrote the script accustomed to maybe Samuel Jackson putting his few inputs here or there. B, Samuel Jackson was given a lot of leeway to improvise Ninja's lines. Or maybe even C, when they were writing the script for Ninja, they knew 1000% Samuel Jackson was their man. Because if one of those three things aren't the case, this is just amazing. This is literally the epitome, the perfect voice acting role for Samuel Jackson, point blank, period. There's even an interview out there with Samuel Jackson. It's on one of those late night talk shows, maybe Jimmy Fallon or something like that, I don't know, where he asks him his favorite roles, and he actually says Ninja is one of his favorite roles he's ever done. And it was kind of weird because Afro Samurai is an anime, not too mainstream for like a big Hollywood star. But yeah, as you just saw, Afro then gets confronted by a man with a
fucking RPG?
Afro had just got done fighting someone else where he got poisoned in that previous battle. So this guy shoots his motherfucking RPG and blows up Afro, and Afro falls down a little cliff. And then you kind of get your first instance of being, well, is Ninja real? Is he just a part of Ninja's conscience? Because nothing really acknowledges Ninja besides Afro, and I'll explain more on that later. Afro falls down into a riverbank where he is saved miraculously by a woman. This woman aids him, feeds him, cleans his clothes for him, the whole shebang. In the present, we see Afro slowly heal and get his strength back while we get flashbacks of his childhood. When Justice defeated Afro's dad, he left Afro the number 2 headband. But Afro, being a little kid, obviously can't handle the turmoil of constantly having to deal with a battle every corner he turns. He gets hawked down by some fugly ass men and then resides in what is a foster home / samurai school. We see Afro, while giving the cold shoulder at first, starts to become a part of this little family and befriend a boy named Gino and a little girl named Otsuru. Then, in the present, as Afro and this woman get more and more acquainted, it seems like they know each other, and that's because they do. Without actually coming out and saying it, they pretty much have mutually acknowledged that she is Otsuru, the little girl from Afro's childhood. They start to develop feelings for each other, and then if you remember, like I said earlier in the video, if you don't remember or you skipped that part, I was like 11 or 12 when I first discovered this anime, and Afro and what she now goes by Okiku have a very, very intimate moment, to say the very least. And I haven't been touching on it too much, but this right here, oh my god, just shows that, yeah, you know what I'm saying, no racial, but a black person had to have some spice on the soundtrack, and you know what I'm saying, it holds up that RZA had his hand in this shit, bro. It has to. Okazaki is on record saying he was heavily inspired by hip-hop culture and just soulful black culture in the West in general, and that definitely holds up, as the song that plays in the background while they're having some steamy as loving is A Walk by Stone Mecca. And if you don't know what this song is by title alone, you should pause the video, go search that song, and there's a 50-50 chance that you've heard that song before, you just didn't know that was the name of the song. That was like some straight up classic R&B type beat, like your mom turned it on that Saturday morning when she was cleaning. If you're black, at least, I don't know, maybe white people listen to it too. I can only speak for the black people here. And man, it definitely fits the mood. That mood is then turned around and crushed though, as we find out that Okiku is working with the brothers who've been stalking Afro for the number 2 headband this entire time. Okiku is, damn bruh, she on that Mona Lisa time. That's tough as hell. Her job is to secure data about Afro from Afro. Eventually though, her feelings overcome her objective and she sells out the enemy. And she's like, "Ayo Afro, I am so sorry, you know what I'm saying, I love you, go ahead, let's have some kids, let's be happy, let's run away together, you know what I'm saying, I had to, I was forced to, but no more, and now you know what's coming." And then she gets a fucking metal beam rammed through her chest. Yeah, I'm not even kidding, that's literally what happens. Afro gets nothing in life, man, absolutely nothing. Something I've really come to appreciate about Otsuru's death though is how Afro reacts. He calls out for her, but he has a very bland and straight face, as if he doesn't care. He does care, but he doesn't care enough to have a big emotional breakdown about it. And when I was, I want to say like 16 rewatching Afro Samurai, you know how you get when you're 16, you think you know everything, and I was like, I'm such a hard-nosed critic and I know so much about writing, and this is such a flawed scene. How is he just gonna have no emotional state or no reaction after this big death comes along? And like 16-year-old Waken, shut up, you know nothing, nigga. Because it plays into the heavy role of him being this cold-blooded killer who's disconnected from the world, having gone through everything that he's been through. Of course he cares about Otsuru, of course he does, but he's been through so many traumatic things and he's experienced death so many times that he can't even help how numb he is to her death. So they're ambushed. Afro manages to escape, thankfully, and it seems as though Otsuru's death does nothing but reassure him on his path. Now, this video is already like 25 plus minutes long, so something I haven't mentioned is don't use this video as a replacement for watching the series. You should definitely watch the series on your own time because, well, it's great. You should even read the manga too if you want, but at least bare minimum watch the series. That being said though, there's a lot that happens in between Otsuru's death and what I'm about to talk about next, so I don't want to make it seem like that in between isn't important, because it is. I just don't want to have you guys here for an hour. So we're gonna hit the fast forward button a little bit. So Afro's at the gate where justice awaits, and he's finally about to get his vengeance, where he's then confronted by a man in a bear head. And from people who haven't seen Afro Samurai, this is probably like the more popular icon besides Afro himself is this bear, which is always kind of weird to me because the bear doesn't really have that much input on the anime, but I guess it's such a weird thing that it stands out. It's the bear that we see Otsuru holding on a lot to, so I guess it touches to more of Afro's human side and makes him resonate with his past. The entire time we've seen Afro on screen, his motto has been vengeance. He's gonna get vengeance, and if you stand in his way, then well, he's gonna have to cut you down. And he's never faltered on this vindictive ideology once. Now he's had Ninja in his ear trying to make him go back or turn a different way or be like, hey man, this is way too dangerous, or do you want to take a break? And remember how I talked about Ninja maybe not being real because he doesn't have that much physical presence to anyone else besides Afro? Well, Ninja isn't real, as confirmed by Okazaki himself. Ninja is indeed in Afro's mind, and to me, Ninja serves in personified form Afro's own self-doubt about what he's doing. Albeit in a comedic tone, Ninja definitely serves what any normal man would be thinking in most situations that Afro is in. Afro has a standoff with Teddy Bear Man here, who we end up finding out is his childhood best friend Gino. Afro seems to realize this without actually realizing it again, kind of like that connection he had with Otsuru, and he's very passive in this fight. He wants to get past Gino, but he doesn't want to cut him down like every other person he's done previous. Gino, on the other hand, even though Afro was his best friend and someone he goes on to say someone he sees, or saw at least, as a brother, has a fiery fuel that doesn't look like it's going out anytime soon, and he wants Afro's ass. Not like that. Like he wants to kill We then get another flashback to Afro in the foster home / samurai school, and I won't go into nitty-gritty details because, again, this video is not a replacement for watching Afro Samurai. You should definitely watch it, not even kidding. But one thing leads to another, and the foster home ends up getting broken into by bandits. These bandits kill the master of this dojo and all the students besides Afro and Otsuru. Gino blames Afro for this because who has the number 2 headband while Afro is looking for it as a young teenager? None other than the Sword Master. The Sword Master presents the idea that he was keeping the number 2 away from Afro because the person who holds the number 2 is going to have to lead a very, very violent life of a killer defending yourself as you try to attain the number 1 headband. And he felt like that's a shitty path for anyone, and he tried to keep Afro away from it. Afro ended up finding out that yeah, you the number 2, fam. I need those. Run me my headband, bro. Run me my headband. Gino feels like if Afro wasn't so consumed by revenge and called out their master for the number 2 headband, then none of the very unfortunate events that happened would have took place. Therefore, he's out for vengeance on Afro, leading to maybe one of the smaller themes of the cycle of vengeance. Who knows? I don't know. You have to wait to the end of the video to see if that's a thing. So as we've previously established, Ninja is not real. That's something that everybody can come to terms with and agree with because, well, Okazaki said it himself. Where some people start to disagree with, though, is what this actually means for Afro and what Ninja represents in the greater narrative of Afro Samurai. Some people thinking that, hey, he's just comic relief for a character who doesn't talk much, but I see it a little bit different, to say the least. Right before Afro finally decides to confront Gino and stop running from him, Gino confronts Afro head on and Ninja jumps in the way. Therefore, Gino kills Ninja, someone who isn't real. But to me, I've always seen Ninja represent Afro's self-doubt, him questioning if what he's doing is worth the revenge he seeks. And when he finally enters a cross path, something that he has to do and can't go back on, killing what is essentially his best friend, the only way to do that is to let go of any self-doubt within himself and to drive forward with the ideology he's always had of cut down any and everyone who stands in his way. As soon as Ninja gets killed by Gino, the fight begins. And this is when I knew that this was a special series. Afro Samurai is only 5 episodes, meaning, very, very bingeable, but at the same time, not a lot of content and not a lot of time to establish any real meaningful relationships, which is why they probably do most of the meaningful build up through flashbacks. But man, oh man, this fight felt so emotional and so intense, from the music to the choreography to the sound effects of the blades. It is all it's all on point. I was looking for the music that played during this fight to have it playing while I was talking, but it seems like there's no version of it where it's just stripped completely from the anime, although there is a person who managed to get the dialogue out of the anime, so the sound effects are still there, but you can hear the music a little bit better. I'll link that in the description and I'll play like a little clip of that now. I did not think it would be possible to make me feel this much emotional substance between 2 characters that I've only had small dealings with up until this point. Watching the version that just has no dialogue, it's so easy just to get consumed by this. Like, This is one of those clips that just goes viral on Instagram and Twitter. You don't need any story or anything like that. You know that what's going on right now is an important fight, and that's all that matters. And no, it's not like I thought Afro was gonna lose. It's not like I ever think or feel like Afro is gonna lose from the moment I watched it as a little kid to the moment I watch it now, obviously. But I don't want Gino to lose. I want Afro to succeed, and I want him to find a way to do that without killing Gino. But unfortunately, that's not the case, and that's not realistic, as Afro's thinking of cutting down every person and everything that stands in front of him triumphs once more, and he takes out his childhood best friend and, all intents and purposes, his own brother. So that ends, and we're now at the big boss fight. Afro has his final confrontation with Justice, and upon entering this hell-like state, Justice has this to say to Afro.
Don't you know that absolute power leads to ultimate peace? Power ain't nothing if you don't use it.
Now, as a youngin', of course, I don't really care about this. I'm like, oh man, congrats, you have a little villain monologue. Afro beat his ass. But paying attention to what he actually says, it's kind of fascinating. And then I realized that, coupled with his name being Justice, there's something here. So the battle starts, and yep, Afro loses. That's that. Appreciate you watching. No, I'm just kidding. Afro, surprise, surprise, being our main protagonist, comes out on top. He defeats Justice and he avenges his fallen father. He then attains the #1 headband. He walks out of that whatever it is, hellhole, mysterious place, whoop-de-whoop-whoop. He has one last confrontation with Gino. They don't explain how or why Gino was alive, but he does. And then the show ends, and that's that. Beautifully handcrafted, a little confusing there at the end, but yeah, gorgeous. So what exactly does this ending mean? I'm glad you asked. So we see clearly that the #1 headband did not make Justice immortal. He gets that weird third arm thingy and then his like touch the rock spike power in the fight, but those don't really come from the #1 headband, or at least that's what I got out of it, because if anything, the third arm thing kind of explains how he actually beat Afro's dad. After all, we don't really get a true explanation. We just see Justice dash past him, and then Afro's dad head goes flying in the air. From the perspective of the anime, my interpretation of the headbands goes like this. Many of us in life set goals. Many of us in life have goals. Not everyone achieves every goal they set for themselves, but just because you achieve your goal, the world doesn't necessarily just stop turning. There's no guarantee that achieving your goal is going to bring you the fulfillment that you think it does. In fact, it probably won't, depending on what you set the standards to be of your goal. You don't get this massive party, confetti doesn't start raining from the sky, you're not going to get this god beam of sunshine put the spotlight on you. Sometimes you achieve something, and that's just that. You achieve what you set out to do. And I think Afro is our headstrong main protagonist bent on revenge that shows us that. He did what he set out to do, and that was the end of the story. And that can sound kind of pessimistic and a little depressing, and this very nihilistic style of thinking, but it's the truth, or at least my concept of the truth. I don't know if I necessarily believe in spiritual beings and manifestation and things like that. I usually stop at the surface level of karma, but believing those things doesn't make you a bad person or anything like that. That's not what I'm alluding to at all. I'm just saying something great that I personally took away from Afro Samurai is set you some dreams, set you some goals, and work hard and achieve those things. And that sounds basic and bland and generic, and I know, but that's what I got from Afro Samurai. And keep in mind, I wasn't this twisted 21-year-old that I am now. I was 12. So picking up on that lesson as a 12-year-old was very, very impactful to me. we're put in the main perspective of Afro the entire show, so we just automatically kind of paint Afro as the good guy. I mean, there's this guy, he killed my dad, and I want to kill him because he killed my dad, but think about all the sacrifice Afro made. Think about all the things he went through and all the things he did. It raises one of those questions about murder in particular. Is all murder morally wrong, or is there some ambiguous gray area? It's a question that Okazaki raises. This is what Justice says in his speech, again, in case you missed it. So he says that, and his name is Justice. Are we implying that he's the good guy in this story? Are we implying that Afro is the bad guy because he just had his head set on attaining vengeance while Justice was keeping the world afloat? I don't know. I don't think there's one definitive way to interpret this ending. I don't think there's one definitive way to interpret this story, especially when you look at the manga that we'll get into now. So again, at the core level, Afro is the same in the manga and the anime, but also kinda different. I won't get into every single detail and every little thing that's different between the manga and the anime, but I will get into the ending, so spoiler for the manga ending if you care about that. In the manga, when Afro passes through the giant gates to finally confront Justice, he gets there and he puts a sword into him while he's sitting, only to come to the sad realization that Justice is already dead. What he just stabbed was nothing more than a corpse. Also, something I should mention, Ninja does not get cut down in the previous fight. He comes with Afro all the way up until Afro attaining the #1 headband and tells him, well, I mean, you're here, so you might as well pick it up and put it on, right? Afro at this point though is indeed in complete despair and spiraling out of control. The one thing he centered his entire life around, he doesn't get to do. He feels cheated. He's not going to get that revenge. He's not going to get that vindication of taking the life of the person who took the life of his father. And in this moment, the manga comes across as a much more bleak and pessimistic ending compared to the anime, and we start to see what Okazaki meant by more mainstream elements. In mainstream storytelling, we want to see the good guy achieve his goal and overcome the conflict, our protagonist, and that be that. The story's over. There's nothing else to do, but Okazaki doesn't really give us that. Well, at first. Afro puts the #1 headband on, and in this story, another big difference is it's not left up into much interpretation, and that whole theme on nihilism is non-existent, because when Afro puts on the #1 headband, yes, he ascends into a god. Remember the whole rule, as I said, about how the #2 can only challenge the #1, so if you don't have the #2 headband, you can't really talk shit to the #1 headband, so everyone's really after the #2 headband? Well, in the anime, that's more of like just like a Chad, more samurai-ish code. It doesn't really seem like it holds much weight, especially in the movie, which I'll cover in a second. Don't worry, we're getting there. But here, no, in the manga it holds weight, and that is very, very, very much so a literal rule. As Afro's sitting in his own pool of tears and despair, completely distraught over the idea that his one goal in life will now never ever be achieved, we see a boy who has the same exact story as Afro, but it's made very clear that he does not have the #2 headband. Afro, who is in such a depressed state, tells the boy, go ahead, kill him. If you want to kill me, go ahead and kill me. And that's what the boy tries to do, at least. But through no will of his own, Afro dodges and the boy dies and gets cut down. The boy then says, very slick move, #1, I'll see you in hell. But we clearly see that Afro did not do this on purpose. Well, in the manga's interpretation, the #1 and #2 headband are very much so these divine items, and they are just as important as we're led to believe in the anime. It's not hearsay, it's not maybe they do something, it's not all in everyone's head. No, we physically see that nah, this headband is special. So this moment again ties back to what Justice says in the anime. What's the point of having power if you're not going to use it? what's the point of attaining this headband if you're not gonna do anything with it? The vibes in the manga is very much more so that Afro is the bad guy, and it has you more so in this middle ground than in the anime. Everyone's tone when knowing what Afro is going to try to do is very much so different. They're all trying to stop him, but not stop him because they want the number 2 headband themselves. They're trying to stop him because they think that he's going to destroy the way of life. You're going to kill God. After a while, Afro finally comes out of the gates where Ninja and another character that's manga exclusive that I can't really explain here because it takes too much time and this video is already long enough, are waiting for him. He then accepts his new role as God. See, in the manga's interpretation, the number 1 headband has control over the world, and it's their job to take care of it. It's their job to make the world a manageable place that runs well for everyone, and this is the job that Afro has just signed up for by putting the number 1 headband on. The manga ends there, but we're then alluded to believe that Afro goes on this big redemption arc to make up for all the bloodshed he did to get his revenge, and he makes the world a good place, and now he's the good guy that, you know, we all want him to be. So this theme of being headstrong on your dreams and being headstrong towards your goals and attaining them no matter what from the anime is completely flipped on its head on the manga. The main theme from the manga is sometimes you're going to have goals set in place and cards just aren't going to line up for you. It's going to be then on you to decide your next move. It's going to be then on you to decide what your fate is, what your destiny is. Are you going to let that failed goal and that failed dream drive you insane, or are you going to move forward and still make the best of this one life that you have? Very, very, very interesting stuff. Afro Samurai is great. I do not see Okazaki making any more Afro Samurai type things because it's just not super popular enough for that, but if he does, man, that would be fantastic. Yeah, again, there was a sequel movie to the original anime. I guess I'll touch on that here. Essentially, the concept of that movie is there's some guys who are pissed off at Afro. Well, I guess a guy and a girl. The girl is Gino's long lost sister. She blames Afro for bad things happening in their life, so they like, hey yo, let's take out that boy Afro, and that's what they do. And to do that, they make a replica of Afro's dad, hence the name Afro Samurai Resurrection. Afro has to fight his dad, yada yada yada. I'm pretty sure you guys can piece the rest together. If you can't, then just go watch it yourself. It's on Hulu. Something I would like to point out though, there's this very emotional moment where Gino sees Afro like on the brink of death, and he's like, that's my brother. And it's man, so emotional for characters that like it takes years for me to feel these type of feelings about other characters and other stories. But yeah, that's that. Like I said, that movie was pretty much made because people wanted more Afro Samurai, and it's not bad or anything, but doesn't really introduce any new pivotal themes or any new crazy concepts to Afro Samurai. Like I said, it's just something if you want more of the story. So that's fine, you can never knock that. No, Afro Samurai was something that was very pivotal to my childhood development. I know that sounds wild to say, seeing how many bodies this guy catches in like an animated sex scene, but it was, alright? It was. And it's something that I'll enjoy now, in the future. Something I enjoyed in the past as a child. I will always have a love for Afro Samurai. I think everybody should try it. It's a great casual anime to try to get into. It's not very long. The manga's cool. The game's cool. The soundtrack and the music is cool. It's all just nice. Nice. Yeah, just nice. I'm running out of adjectives here. My brain's on E. this. I'm gonna be honest, this isn't even part of the script. I'm just finishing out this video, so yeah. And that's the end of my first big video that I put a lot of time into, and I think this is my new favorite video on the channel. So yeah, if you enjoyed, please